I wish I had recorded all that, Francois.
I did start a recording on my side before, so if you want it, I will send it to you.
For sure, yeah. I think people would like to hear it.
Especially if it's useful.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's exactly why we're doing this here, and it is so simple, and everyone can discover it.
Testimonies
And
are very helpful, actually, because sometimes that's the difference between somebody trying it and not trying it. Just seeing that it's like somebody's real experience put into words. You can tell the difference, you know?
Yeah. Yes, I will share. I will share. I think it's Sarah that wrote that. Absolutely. I will send it to you, Ben and Trevor, and you'll share with the group, whatever.
yeah, so just listening to you, and I've been listening to some videos from different course teachers today, Course in Miracles teachers. And also the more I listen to the course, I see the two-part formula in there, and it's hidden everywhere. It's like hidden in plain sight. But just anytime that they're talking about, like for example, one of the examples I came across today was that you sit back in the movie theater with Jesus and watch your life. Or and then he'll also say, like, you look upon the devastation. And so the devastation is this selfishness and like the mess that that makes out of your life. And you
Yeah.
sit back and you watch it with the Holy Spirit, with Jesus. And you know, everything that they say in the course is true. Like when you look at it in that way with the Holy Spirit, the the thing that's the illusion disappears, and what's left is the Holy Spirit, and you can see just for your own, with your own eyes, in
Mm.
your own mind, one of these things is real, and that's the part that's always with me. That's who I really am. And this other thing is just the troublemaker. And it's that simple.
Yeah. Yeah.
But also what we're doing with the two-part formula, I think one of the things that makes it special is so if you just kind of go through your day and you're establishing, you know, the Holy Spirit, and you're just watching your life, well, kind of most of what's happening in your life is, well, it's going to be selfish types of programs running, basically.
Yeah.
But they're kind of secondary, or the the thing that's running all those programs, which is like the core, I thought, is sort of sitting in the background, and it doesn't really come up to the front. It's actually kind of like it's like a king ruling from the throne, and all of his ministers are out doing stuff. And so you can kind of play this game where you're seeing all your selfish patterns with the Holy Spirit, but
Yeah.
you're not seeing the king on the throne. And that's
Mhm.
what the two-part formula does, because it's also like they say, there's no order of difficulty for miracles. So it's just as easy to see through that the king, or really the tyrant that's sitting on the throne, that's the I and me and the personal self,
Yeah.
sitting right there. And where I like to think of him sitting is right there behind your eyes, in the middle of your head. And that's because that's where it squeezes the tightest, when you're having those selfish programs are running. And that's actually always running as you're going out through your day. And it's a selfish energy, and it's going out and interacting with the world and everything you're seeing, and creating all this drama. And it's that thought that I am the character doing all of this.
Yeah. Absolutely. And when I was referring to the clear-cut clarity, it was exactly about that otherwise kind of fuzziness that you described, Ben. Often we will see, not see, not see, okay, blah, blah, blah. There is the fuzziness is can dilute, what otherwise would be the clarity. The two-part formula is clear-cutting through that. Wonderful.
Yeah, and that's that's exactly the kind of thing we're wanting to investigate too when we're doing the two-part formula, because you know the selfish programs are basically all, none of them are clear. They're all distorted. So whenever they're running, and you're actually, who you really are is aware. You're aware of your life happening and your experiences, and you have these programs running, and they make your whole, as long as you're focused on them, which you always are when you haven't seen through the core part of the self, the I thought, your whole perception is distorted, because you're always thinking in terms of me and you and self and other, and that itself is a distortion. When you see it clearly, you can, there's nothing there's nothing solid there. There's nothing about the self that actually can be seen clearly. So it's a an unfindability. Oh yes.
Anu, of
Sorry,
course.
we're just going on. So the two-part formula is what we're going to do here shortly. It's a it's a practice that we use to wake up, or to experience who we really are. You could say there's many different ways to say it. Direct revelation in course terminology is what happens when we do the two-part formula and see through our selfish nature, and we see our Christ nature is what's underneath that. But really it's who we really are, and the our selfish, or you could say the ego thought system, is blocking our vision of our Christ nature. And so the two-part formula is basically it's doing something that's described in the course in many places. And what we're doing is we're joining with the Holy Spirit, which is a thought system that does not judge, and it's open and clear and alive and grounded. And so we join with the Holy Spirit thought system, and then we look at the ego thought system and what the ego thought system has made. And what it has made is this idea of me being a separate person. And so the two-part formula refers to Holy Spirit thought system, ego thought system, and we go back and forth between those two modes. And just like Jesus tells us, what will happen is the Holy Spirit sees what is true and what is false. And so when the Holy Spirit looks at the ego thought system, it sees that it's false. And so that's exactly what we're going to do. And we do it step by step, and we do it carefully and in a scientific way to make sure that we really are mixing the things so that we can see. We want to be able to clearly see what's going on, and that's how this practice works.
Something I'd like to mention about pendulating between the states, and that connecting with the Holy Spirit, and then looking at the ego thought system with clarity, it very often brings stress to that ego system. Like there's often rejection, there's grief or anguish or whatever. All sorts of emotional signals can fly up just because the ego reacts to that much of energy, like that much energy just being put through it directly is not really used to. It's used to dealing with a relative world. So it's just something to keep in mind. Like emotion or turmoil is actually a good sign. Like it means you're getting at the core of the problem and you just have to hang in there until you can see through it. If it gets too much, we can sway back to the Holy Spirit, take a rest, and look at it again. And eventually, the stress it'll cause it to let go, even for a moment. It's just enough to see what is actually there and what isn't there.
Yeah, it's really the only thing that's required for us is looking, right? There's not really any tinkering beyond that. Yeah, go ahead, Francois.
Yeah, because what you mentioned, Trevor, I mean, I skipped in the description of last week. I skipped an important part on that, exactly what you meant, what you said, Trevor. I did have, just prior to our meeting last week on the Sunday, there was I did had started the 2PF before the meeting, going with the instruction, the basic instruction that are on your Facebook site. I did start it, and I did experience a what I would describe as a major upset on the Sunday prior to our meeting on Monday, and it was it's going to sound funny, but probably I will describe it. But during the time I was experiencing it, it was really real. Something happened. My wife said something. It was quite benign, you know. It has to do with our daughters, and that she was really disappointed of the way they are behaving and all of that. And it did trigger in me something that first I went down. I went kind in a depressive mode. And from there, I went to self-attack, but real self-attack, like really going after myself, like I did when I was a teenager. And I had no clue where it's, I mean, I thought it was related to what happened with my wife, that she said something. Then I realized, after being 18 hours into that it can be. And so I thought that might be something that was triggered by this practice. The only thing that was new in what I was doing was the practice. So I said, it must be that. And it must be that this sense of self, that the made up self, is feel actually threatened by what is going on. And I decided to, okay, good, I'm going to continue deeply, because something is going on. So it's exactly like you said, Trevor. There was this kind of surge of a very defensive kind of mode that was surprisingly vicious, but it was also, yeah, in a way, at least a relative end of that. It was very interesting to witness that.
Yeah, I've had a bit of a similar thing happen to me, or I think this is pretty common too, but I had just this huge wave of fear for absolutely no reason come up. And I could tell I was getting close to having another awakening. It wasn't my first awakening, but that's what it was reacting to. And it had there was no meaning or content it was just like the self was like, here, try to handle this because you're getting close, just throwing this thing at you. And it was big enough that I was like, okay, well, I'm done for right now. And I stopped. Yeah, that's exactly right, Alicia. And but the thing is, when you're doing this practice, because I did stop, because at for the moment, because I was scared, a big bubble of fear came up. But I went right back later on as soon as that was over and kept going, and then I had another awakening. So you don't um the result is inevitable, I would say, when you do this practice. Like the ego, whatever it throws at you, it's not gonna it's not gonna matter in the end.
Mm.
And it likes to use fear. The Course in Miracles talks about that a lot, that fear is kind of one of the last defenses of the ego. So if that happens, don't worry about it too much. It will pass. Why don't we get started with the practice then today? So take a comfortable posture with your back upright and your spine straight. If you need to use a backrest, that's okay. Try to keep your back as straight as possible, if so. And during this practice, we're not going to want to sit through discomfort or pain. So go ahead and move your body and keep it comfortable. If something starts hurting, please move. Don't just sit through it. And go ahead and let your breath start settling and establishing a natural breathing rhythm. You can take a couple deep breaths if you want. So we're going to have our eyes closed and point your gaze straight ahead as much as possible with your eyes closed. So as we're letting our body relax and just letting all the tension drain out of our muscles, all the stress we've accumulated through the day, just letting it drain. We can imagine the tension going out of our body when we breathe out. Letting your exhale kind of be like a sigh, relieving that tension. And as our body's relaxing, we're going to start to watch as it feels more open. So tensions are tight and make us feel small and compressed and uncomfortable. So as those tensions disappear, find in your body the feeling of openness, spaciousness. And as we're relaxing deeper, we can scan through the body, and any tensions we find, just let them go. And as the tensions release again, feel the new open space where the tension used to be. So we're feeling our bodies open up. I like to let my body be like a house, an old house with all the doors and windows open so all the air can move freely. That's the kind of open feeling we're going for in our body. And so if we're having any thoughts or worries or anything like that, you can just also let those pass freely. Don't try to stop them or do anything with them. Just let them come and go in one window and out the other. So completely free flowing open space in our bodies. So while we're trying to cultivate the Holy Spirit, which is what we're doing right now, we're going to notice and we're going to look to see if there is a self anywhere in there. So you can look in your body and see if there is a self there. Is there an individual subject of your experience? And one of the ways you can look for that is as you're feeling your body. For example, you can feel your skin. Is there a person feeling the skin, or is there just the feeling of skin? So we can also do this investigation now that we're in the Holy Spirit mind. If there's any sounds in your environment, cars going by, birds, anything like that, whatever kind of small sounds there are, see if there's actually a subject hearing those sounds or if the sounds are simply heard. So this is the investigation we're wanting to do. Is there a subject of your experience? And just look. So let's look in our body now. Look in your head. Can you find a separate individual that's experiencing all of this in your head, in the space of your head? Is there something inside there that seems like a separate person or a self? Continuing looking in your chest, you can look in your torso. Is there a self there, or is there just open, clear space and stillness and peace? And go ahead and check in your arms and legs for the same thing. Is there a self there? You can also check your breath, and you can feel your exhale and your inhale, and just look, is there someone doing the inhaling, or is there someone doing the exhaling? Or are you just aware of exhaling and inhaling? Just look and see. So another thing I want to point out about the Holy Spirit, is that there's no judging. It doesn't judge, and that means it's not pushing or pulling on anything. It's just a seeing clearly. It's seeing experience clearly. So something we learn in the course about the Holy Spirit is that it knows the truth, or it can see the truth. It has vision. So find that right now. Find that vision. And one more time, let's just check and see if that vision is selfish, if there's a self or a person doing the vision, doing the seeing, or is it just vision? Is it just awareness? So now that we've checked, we're going to go ahead and move to the second part of the two-part formula, and we're going to summon the ego. We're going to summon the I thought. And so the way we're going to do this is we're going to say and repeat the words I, me. And we'll go ahead and do that a few times. I, 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 me, me, me. Put some energy into it, because you really want to draw the ego out. You want to feel what that feels like when you say that, like you mean it. When you say I and me, what do you mean? Say it like you mean it. I, me, and just watch what happens. Let's do it one more time, and we're going to continue feeling our bodies and see what happens when we're bringing the ego out. I, me, mine. So now with these sensations that come up with the ego thought system, we're just going to investigate them, and we're just going to keep watching them. And as these sensations are forming, we're going to see, where are they? Are they in the body? What is their size? What is their shape? What is their texture? What do they feel like? So we're just looking at these sensations. We're not judging them. We're just watching them. We're just seeing them clearly. And we're seeing, where are they happening in the body? Is it in the stomach? Is it in the chest? Is it in the head? Are they moving? And what are the characteristics? Does it feel good? I know it doesn't feel good. It feels bad, but what does that feel like? And we're going to keep watching these sensations. And as they start to disappear, we're going to see that the Holy Spirit is there still. And it has been. But just watch that transition. Keep watching the sensations. And as they dissipate, see what opens up in their place. So again, as we settle back into the Holy Spirit, we're going to see what that feels like and see how it feels open, clear, settled, it's peaceful. You might feel that it's loving, that it's warm, and that it's accepting. It doesn't judge. So again, we're going to check now here in the Holy Spirit, in this state, that the suggestion is that there's no self here. So let's check. Now that we've let the I thought dissipate, see if you can find anything there. Is there a subject of your experience? Is there a self who's doing the seeing, who's feeling the space of your body, or is it just felt? Let's go ahead and check around our body too. Check in the front. Is there a self? Is there a subject, an other, a me in front of our body? Is there one behind us? Above? Below? Can we find a separate self on the left or on the right? but we do know what our experience is like right now. So we can feel that knowingness that's just happening by itself. There's no one doing the knowing. The experience is just known. So let's go back to the I thought now. This time we'll say I, me a couple times. And then what I'd like to suggest is think of something that, some, quickly think of something that kind of feels important to you, that maybe you even feel bent out of shape about a little bit, something you want to protect or afraid of, and use that for your I thought. So, for example, I deserve respect. I am special. I am important. And this is my life and my decisions and my things, my career, my family, mine. And just kind of try to trigger yourself with that. So, I deserve respect. I am very important. People should listen to me. These things are mine. My life is mine. It's my hard work. Go ahead and keep saying those affirmations until you really build up a charge and can feel the I thought, the ego thought. I, me. What do I want? What's in it for me? And again, we're going to go ahead and investigate those sensations. Where are they in the body? Are they solidifying somewhere? Are they in the head? Try to find the edges of them, see what their shape is. What's the extent of them? See if you can see through them. Can you see in the middle of them? What's their texture? These sensations that come up from the I thought. Do they feel natural or do they feel restrictive? And we're just going to keep watching those sensations. They're not good or bad. We're not judging them. We're not criticizing them. We're not correcting them. We're just watching what happens when our mind is occupied by the I thought. And as those start to settle down a little bit, we're comparing the ego thought with the Holy Spirit. And in the context of the Holy Spirit, what can we determine about the ego thought? And again, we're watching as the thought dissipates. If tensions came up, and they're releasing what's left after they release. And if they're not releasing, well, we'll look at that too. So now as we settle back into the Holy Spirit, let's just check again what this feels like and notice the qualities of the Holy Spirit so we can find it again in our practice and in our daily lives. So you may still have sensations of the I thought, and that's okay, but we should be able to tell that the Holy Spirit is there as well. And you can tell because the I thought is going to be localized and restricted, but everything else around it is open. So that open nature without any borders, that's just clearly aware of everything. It's aware of sounds, aware of sensations, and doesn't try to do anything to them. So there's no doer, there's no pushing and pulling. That's the Holy Spirit. The Holy Spirit doesn't push or pull. So find that relaxed, stable nature in your experience, in your body, also outside of your body. And so the Holy Spirit also is alive. It's living. And so you can feel that livingness, that aliveness. It's not dead. So that is the two-part formula. You can go ahead and open your eyes and love to hear what people's thoughts are, what you experienced during that.
You're muted, Ben. If you're saying something.
Oh, thanks. I was actually just going to ask you, since you turned your camera on, how was that
Uh,
for you? What do you think?
yeah, it's really powerful. Um, much like Francois, I had a lot of intense fear that came up last week. It's like an entire week, and just this is all new to me, but I just felt to as I inquired into what was happening, I did the process with those really deep. It felt like beliefs that were holding me in place. So I did it with that. It was really powerful experience. And you mentioned something today is just as powerful. But you mentioned something about when you seem to linger, the ego thoughts, or that how it is in the body, like I feel like I can't breathe. And it's a thing that's happening, which I thought was a good thing before this process, was this sort of pulsing in my mind, my head, and behind my ear. And I always thought, oh, that's good. That's good what's happening. Now I'm seeing, I think, it's that spiritual ego, because that's what was really coming up. And the ego's the ego, but that my spirituality, my practice, I'm the one that's doing this. Why am I being appreciated? Why aren't I being appreciated for it? Why aren't these when acknowledging those sort of things, all sort of around this spiritual ego? And this thing that would happen in my processes, I was like, oh, something's going on. This is good. This is good. And then to have the contrast of the spaciousness. Yeah, just the peace and the space that seems to happen, which which is always present for my intense struggle to get something, and thinking like this is my reward. Is this something that's happening in my body? So I really appreciate very practical split, the very practical experience of the two things not being able to be together. So, so, yeah, thank you. But yeah, when it lingers, when it lingers. Yeah. Mm.
Thanks so much. That's great to hear.
Mm.
Yeah, it's kind of funny when I'm leading this, because like I'm asking, what does it feel like? Feel the I thought. I know damn well what it feels like. It feels like shit.
Mm. Oh God.
and and it's crazy how we walk around with that all day long and don't even notice it, because you don't do this investigation. People don't know to do it, and they don't realize how close the Holy Spirit really is. Isn't that, I mean, it's just crazy. It's right here. It's what everybody has
Mm.
all the time, but you're just so caught up in the selfish thoughts. It's like you can't, it's just like the Course says,
Mm.
you can't see, you're stuck in this dream, and you think all of that's real, and you can't see that you're, you know,
Yeah, it
in
was
heaven.
really crazy because it was all week long, and this falsity sort of came up, and it was hard to look at that. Oh, I'm sorry, you shouldn't do it. This falsity came up, and it was really hard to look at. And then I was at another meeting with a powerful teacher, and she just said a word, and all of a sudden, all of the stuff that I was trying to make with this go away, just sort of just immediately dropped. It was like, oh yeah, that's what's true. That's what's real. That's what always is. It's this other thing, like you said, like in front of it, that's got my attention. And that's what and it was like, it was so it was like boom, like okay, 1 minute I'm like, and the next one it's like, oh yeah, that's right. And it's the same thing here in this process. Like 1 minute I'm just like, it's so visceral and like I'm like this, and then the next one's like, oh yeah, nothing to do. So yeah, thank you.
That's great. Thanks so much, Tina. Sarah, do y'all wanna share anything? I'm gonna start putting people on the spot.
That's fair. Yeah, we do. Jenna does.
I had a question and it formulated some thoughts, but I'd love to hear you guys' first, in the sense of the Holy Spirit doesn't come push or pull. And so then how would you define, or in your own experience, what shows up in the way in which you experience the Holy Spirit moving?
Yeah, where does the movement come from? Because it's like, it's a force. A draw, not a push pull, but a draw.
I came up with a word, but I also want to dialogue it too.
Well, so what I would say is the Holy Spirit doesn't move at all. Yeah, the Holy Spirit is completely stable and even. So it covers everything equally. And that includes all of time and space is within the Holy Spirit as well. So yeah, my answer, the Holy Spirit doesn't do anything, but it does see. So it knows everything that's happening, but I wouldn't describe it as an action or something that it does. It's just sort of naturally occurring vision.
have a very different felt experience of that than what you just described, but I think you're right. Let me just start by saying you're not wrong. And then simultaneously to that, source or spirit is what animates everything. And it's always seeking harmony and balance. And so if it doesn't move, is it everything moving around it? And then, or is it moving within? And then still coming back to, is it pushing? Is it pulling? Where's the movement coming from?
The Holy Spirit doesn't seek or grasp either. It's what you would call equanimity, although the aliveness gives it the feeling of motion. And when we see aliveness, we attribute it that, like the source of that, to the Holy Spirit, but the source itself is pervasive. You can't actually see like fluctuations or movement in it, although it does manifest that way. Like it is the cause of movement, but it is not experienced as movement.
So what you're saying is it's a perception of motion. It's not actually moving.
Yeah.
So then
It's part of the illusion.
what animates us? Sorry to interrupt there.
What animates us?
Yeah.
I suppose it would depend on what you call us. Like if you're saying our bodies, then you could say, our life force or something like that. But if you keep reducing it to primordial awareness, which would be the same thing a Dzogchen practitioner would call the Holy Spirit, at its most reductive essence, it's just mind. Like there's nothing giving or receiving or whatever. It's just an experience of pervasive love. And then what comes out of that. But it's like a fountain of activity coming from stillness.
So what I'm still struggling to grasp a hold of is this concept of illusion, because I just see it, keep experiencing it in a fractal way of source perceiving infinite expressions of itself, being in this density and having this perception of individual I, me, is just a fractal expression of source, because we're all oneness. So what I'm struggling with is like that this is in a sense real. It's not the whole picture, and the issue is that the perception is it's the whole picture, and that's the illusion. But the experience is a fractal expression of source. Feel free to correct me, like, or
Yeah, the experience can be, will have a multitude of aspects and sensations, emotions, thoughts, or whatever. Like the miraculous display is our experience, but where it comes from is stillness. And that's when you recognize the source, the display has the correct content. Well, not content, context all of a sudden. And that's what we're searching for, is a shift in context by looking at what we perceive to be subject and object, but you have to bounce back and forth until the context slips in the right place.
So source is stillness. I'm on board with that. There is, like, I'm still got to come back to the movement piece of it, the seeking, the essentially source is seeking to come back to itself. Like it's experiencing and it's witnessing infinite individual manifestations, unique manifestations, and then at the same simultaneously, all those unique manifestations are seeking to experience oneness. And there, to me, that's movement. Like that pull or the yearning, why we're all here. Like there's legitimate movement happening where in this expression of reality, we are moving to come into connection with truth, with source, with harmony, with balance, with awareness, celebration of witnessing ourselves and each other and the experience of it all as a collective. Like that's not nothing. Like it is in a fractal expression. It like sure, source is stillness at the core level, but then out into the fractal expression of where we are right now. Let me start to use my words better. Like this is real. The illusion is that this is the entirety. That's the illusion.
The illusion is that there is somebody that believes all of this matters or is happening or is moving or has substance. The illusion is on the level of perception only, and it confuses what is experienced.
Mm.
So all
Yeah.
this movement and like the fractals of experience are here, but they're not being seen from the proper place. They're all still
Right.
occurring within the stillness, like within the openness. That both is true at the same time. It's just a question of how it's perceived, and how it's perceived impacts your experience of it.
And so how it's perceived depends on your thought system in Course in Miracles terminology. So the Holy Spirit is, or like Trevor's saying, the context. So the Holy Spirit is one context. In the other context, there's only two contexts. The other one is the ego thought system. And so when we're talking about illusions, basically everything that the ego makes up is the illusion. And what everything that the ego makes up is subject and object. So basically individual entities, that's the illusion. And the error is again, and is one of context.
This is feeling really rich, and I don't want to be taking up a bunch of space in the discussion. Like, know if this is serving other people too. But
This is how we grow our awareness, is talking about the facets as they come up. That's fine.
I have so much that is wanting to get unpacked right now, and I can take a pause on it.
We got time.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, does anybody else want to share before?
Alicia just gave you the go ahead, and Anu's been
I'm gonna
commenting here
have
and
to
there.
bounce, but I wanted to find out where the recordings are from, because I would love to hear the rest of this discussion, but I'm gonna have to leave. So I'm wondering, where are they found?
I will let you know as soon as they are up.
Okay.
There's no recordings up yet, but there will be soon.
Okay, no, I knew you were recording. I just wondered if there was a place, but okay, cool.
Yeah, no, I'll make sure to let everybody know.
Right on.
And
So,
we're friends on Facebook, so I'll send it to you.
cool. We are now. And I look
Thanks so
forward to
much,
hearing the
Tina.
rest of this discussion. So thank you so much. Yeah, I really appreciate you. Love you.
Take care.
Have a good evening.
Yeah, thank you.
Bye, Tina. Thank you.
What you got?
All right. I'm still not satisfied with the answer that source is stillness, because we are source. We are fractal expressions of reality. It's
Stacking a bunch of labels on your experience doesn't help reduce an experience to its essence. It just gives it more complication. This is actually a trouble of being extra intelligent, is that we can always come up with more like justifications or more intellectual avenues instead of just turning back on perception.
Thank you.
I'm sorry. That always comes out so much ruder than it is in my head, but
No.
that's how it has to go.
No, that was honest. You've been hanging out with Ben too much. You always have to be suspicious of stuff. But no, that wasn't sarcastic. That was just like, no, like, thank you for pointing that out.
No problem.
One more thing I can talk about, because this came up, I want to cover the pushing and pulling. So that's sort of, I like to use that term because to me, that's one of the main things that goes along with the ego thought system experience, which is that it's when there's something you don't want, you push it away with your mind. And when there's something you do want, you pull it. So it's like wanting something really bad or wanting something to go away. That's the pushing and pulling. And it doesn't actually, you don't actually have to fit. It's not a physical pushing or pulling. It's pushing and pulling on thoughts. And it's the ego that does that, because the Holy Spirit doesn't push or pull. So thoughts that come up in the Holy Spirit, in the Holy Spirit being selfless, having no selfishness. When there's no selfishness, there's no pushing or pulling. You don't want this thing to come closer to you, and you don't want that thing to go further away. The attitude of the Holy Spirit is completely even, and that's even across your whole mind. The attitude is even, and the attitude is sort of, sometimes you could, in one way you could say it's neutral, and I think Francois, you might have even used the word neutral before, but in a way it's neutral in that it doesn't judge, but it's also positive in that it's always accepting and always loving. regardless of whether it's something that the ego finds repulsive or desirable.
Mhm.
And I was gonna say then what shows up is the energetics, for lack of a better word, of receiving and then creation. Like that there is an energetic force that I would experience in the compulsion to create and then the leaning back of reception. So again, in that world, yeah, the language that we are limited to and that.
Okay, pulling back from the intellectual side of things, like when I think about the force of creation and the movement that that force of creation makes, I think about a seed germinating. I think about the wind wearing away the mountain into sand. I think about, like, you can come up with so many examples of how how creation is animated. And I mean, that's obviously examples here on this physical plane, on this planet. But there's a feeling that's not pushing or pulling, but it's a feeling. It's very powerful. It's the draw. It's the urge to, I mean, think about a seed germinating, like the consciousness of a seed germinating. It's the urge to reach and expand and
Complete the code.
express. Like there's that, again, what moved us all here together. And I want to refrain from like a cycle of, well, this is all like this really source is just stillness, and we're just in this illusion and attachment of like the physical, but that's the illusion. And so again, like pulling back from the intellectual of that, I agree with what you said, Jenna, the force, the draw, the
Energetic coding is what I think.
when we're breathing and the power of breath and the movement of breath and what breath creates. You're right. It's not a push and it's not a pull. And I
I
guess
have
the
an
best,
answer for this, I think.
what?
Actually, I like your analogy of the germination and growing, because it's something you could describe as happening naturally, right? And something that happens mechanically is technically right, but doesn't capture it. We want to say biologically, organically, and other nicer sounding words. But all of that would happen from seed to full-blown plant without a self, correct?
Without a self, I mean, I don't agree with that, because there's a resonance, there's an energy signature
Energy is not self either.
that's unique to every being. So I think maybe we're dancing around semantics of what, like, when coming back around to the fractal expression, like infinite source is like, just to really, I think, Ben, I was trying to talk about this earlier with you, and I'm going to bring it back around because, yeah, I'm really chewing on this one. Like, to simplify it, thinking about source as all of the frequencies, all the sounds, all of the colors, all at the same time. So the entire color spectrum together all at once is white, and all of the sound frequencies together all at once just creates one singular resonance. I mean, one, like, it's only perceived as one singular, so white sound, and then it differentiates into all of these different wavelengths. Like, so you have different tones, different colors being able to become like visible, and then you get the ability for harmony comes from the differentiation of these different tones, and the ability for patterns and images and colors, like comes from the differentiation of these photons, like these different wavelengths, and then how they all weave together. And so you couldn't have like it's incredible for everything to be happening all at once, and it's also incredible for things to be being pulled out of that, being distinct, and then interplaying together. And so essentially, like, you could think of the self, like, if you think about the seed germinating, like, there's consciousness in that seed. All of the potential of source is in that seed, but there's distinct colors and sounds that are weaving together in a very unique way to then present as that individual seed. And again, I'm really simplifying this because, like, the concept of frequencies, it's like sound and colors are really tangible ways to conceptualize frequencies. But that seed that's germinating is its own symphony of very distinct colors coming out of the white light, like very distinct wavelengths coming out and then weaving together, very distinct sounds coming out and weaving together, and then you get this blend, this very unique blend that, like, is that seed, and that calling or that yearning or that draw that pulls that at that seed to express and create within itself. And then you get to the physical expression of this plant, and it as it grows, like,
So which part of that is the self?
there's so much movement. Like, that's what I'm trying to say. There's so much movement.
But which part of that is the self?
What part of that is the self? I mean, I think I'm not clear, I guess, on what you guys are referring to when you say the self.
We're saying there isn't one. Like, no matter how discreetly you describe any particular phenomena, there isn't a self that can be pinpointed. No matter what the
So
complexity of, like, interlocking display,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter. There isn't an individual self. There are
Okay.
borders that we place on a thing. Like, any individuality or any differentiation anywhere is imposed by us.
when you say imposed by us, you mean imposed by our ego self projecting? Like, I
Belief
guess,
in it is due to ego. Perception is not due to the ego. Like, you can perceive the display without believing in a self, and that's what an open mind would do.
I think that's what I'm getting at. Like, I think you just said it beautifully. You can perceive the display, and that's what I'm talking about. Like, there's a lot of movement in the expression of creation, and I don't feel like that's coming from a ego or illusion of self to perceive that.
Yeah. It's just when you perceive a particular thing and it makes you feel solid. It's like the impact on the subjective experience is where ego causes the issue, not not perceiving the display. It's just how you react to it is the ego mind.
So coming back to, if it's not a push and it's not a pull, where is the movement coming from? Because there is movement. It's a distinct expression of how certain frequencies specific frequencies are weaving together.
It's
And
just
there's
cause and effect. It's
So-
just happening.
What makes it so that we spend so much time talking about self and selfishness, and like we it seems like that's like the main context of the conversation on this call.
Yeah, the reason for that is because of what selfishness does to our experience, basically, which is that it makes experience negative.
It obscures the Holy Spirit or primordial awareness, or what your label for it is. Ego mind obscures what is there. And so that's why we're talking about it, to show you what really is there and isn't there, and to hopefully help you with that context shift.
And it's seen basically what is the source of positivity versus what is the source of negativity. And you discover that the Holy Spirit is the source of positivity and the ego is the source of negativity. And only one of those is actually necessary. The Holy Spirit is necessary.
Or I was seeing Holy Spirit as neutrality.
Well, it's in a way it's neutral, but it's also positive. I mean, it's definitely positive. Like it's a little bit weird talking about it in this way, saying that it's like, but I want to say it's more positive than it is neutral. Its attitude towards what's happening in what the Course in Miracles says, like in the movie, which is all of our experiences, its attitude towards that is entirely positive, but not in the sense of like wanting it or pulling on it, because for the ego, positive and negative has a different connotation. For the ego, positive means I want it, negative means I don't want it. But for the Holy Spirit, everything is positive in the sense that it's all part of the perfection. It's all God's son or child. So different ways to express it, but
I wanna circle back around to, and I'm so sorry because I don't think I'm gonna pronounce your name correctly. Like now I'm like shy. I'm gonna try. Please correct me. Francois.
Francois. Mhm.
Thank
Yes,
you.
yes, absolutely.
When you were speaking towards the end of what you were sharing, you mentioned that it made you, what you were experiencing and very recently made you question if you had ever experienced truly love before this point. And tying in that like that experience of profound love that is, it is true connection with source. Like that's, obviously there's always evolution and deepening.
Mhm.
But it's like there's a real tangible connection in the body and then across all dimensional expressions of self. And the stillness that Trevor is speaking to, I feel like the stillness is the reverence space of just experiencing all of it all at once.
Mhm.
I've heard it expressed as 0 point. That the concept of 0 point makes sense to me as well. But I think I'm like realizing that my mental rigidity is coming from like the way that stillness is being spoken about. For me, stillness isn't the right word, but it's definitely the absence of any need to be doing anything else, or to like there's no pull or push or draw
Mhm.
that space, but
Mhm.
there's a lot of movement.
Mhm.
But the movement isn't coming from separated, disjointed aspects of yourself trying to,
Yeah.
trying to push into that separation.
Yeah.
or cement into that separation or validate that separation. It's like there's no more urgency or need or chaos.
Can I be more specific about what I said before?
Please.
But because that's it. When I mentioned, and probably that's the way I phrased it, that my experience is that questioning, did I ever love before? What I noticed within the past few days was the times during which love was expressed through me before, when it had, was not coming from the experience of the I. So questioning, like I did, I'm wondering if I ever loved before. It is the contrast brought by the fact that since the 2PF is practiced the way the way I do it, I realize that it's not in the ego part, it's not in the I part, it's not in the mind part. There's no love there. There's definitively no love there. When there was, and there is love in Maya, and when there was, it was not coming from the I part. It was not coming from the mind part. It was not coming from the transactional concept of what I felt I was. And that's then fascinating, because with the removing of the forefront being taken by the I, then it's like love. It's like just that is what is brought forward. It's not that it's what it was not there before. It's now acknowledged. That's essentially the makeup of what we are. What we are is that. And in the terminology of the Course in Miracles, I mean, there's a lesson, I don't remember the number exactly, but I could feel peace instead of this. And the lesson is bringing us into when we let dissolve, we get back to peace. And peace and love are deeply connected, not only in 71, but right now, this is the experience. I mean, love is not coming without peace. And peace is not coming without love. And probably it's reaching this part that you describe as a movement. Then from that, you can see that and experience that it's just there, it's just open, and it feels like a movement. It's not that it wasn't there before. It was mostly not acknowledged because we got distracted into everything else. Chapter 31, I think it's the fifth part of chapter 31, self and the concept of self. It's opposing the fact that, in a way, that we invested a lot in the concept of self, and of course it's saying you came in this world without a self, and you built a concept of self synchronized with the world, and it feels at ease in the world, and the world is actually praising that concept of self and blah, and everything that comes to that. But what it's saying is that that's it. It's the difference between being made, and you were mentioning about created. I think it's Jenna that we're talking a lot about creation before, and creation in the Course is referred to as extension. So it's essentially, okay, we can see extension as a movement, but from where to where, I mean, it's encompassing, it's extension, and creation.
Extension, yeah.
Yeah. So
And back to the seed germinating, like that extension of
extension.
like the potential is then activated, and it reaches, it extends,
Yeah.
it
So
expresses upon itself, and
Mm.
is that expansion, like that's it. That's where the like creation is, or source is always expanding. Like that's the movement.
Mm.
I don't know.
certainly feels like this. And from the perspective of a Course in Miracle, that's brought as that.
Yeah.
Mhm.
An important factor being it can't be pushed. It has to allow, like you have to allow it to expand. And of course, the contrast to that is the selfish gripping or contracting.
Right. Surrender to the code. So Francois, Jenna and I last week were talking about the nervous system developing, like what you just said. I feel like you were part of our conversation. How you were saying that how we develop on this planet or in this existence. I wish I could remember exactly what you were saying, because like we come in without an identity of self, but then we develop and we evolve an attachment and an identity of self. And that just dovetails so perfectly with what where our conversation was going last week, with you come in as an infant and your nervous system literally learns how to create associations and like associations with all the different types of sensory input that you're bumping with. And then it creates this your nervous system creates this framework of reference around when I'm bombarded with this combination of sensations, I can then make these predictions about how to engage with that experience. Like, if you bump into a table, oh, I bumped that. I see a table, and then I bump into it. I experience a sharp edge. Therefore, I now have developed an association for when I see a table, I know that if I bump into it, I'm going to come up against a hard edge. So you learn how to engage with your environment, and you develop a frame of reference, and that everybody's nervous system development is unique based on the unique associations that they make across all through the bombardment of sensory input, light, sound, touch, pain, pressure, temperature.
Yeah.
And then that context is how all the new input and every moment gets sorted, edited, shaped into a relatable and into an interpretation that's relatable to past interpretations, so that predictions can be made about how to move forward in this physical world.
Yeah.
And there's to me, the concept of like completely separating from the ego is like trying to get rid of that entire associated, like that entire construct and framework of reference and association for engaging in our physical world. And instead of completely getting rid of that, so we're not just like babies, wide-eyed, open mouth, completely inundated with sensory information and don't have any way to engage with it productively. It's like instead creating partnership with the ego and be like reverence and respect and regard of like, thank you for helping me have this physical experience, but then releasing and becoming aware and releasing attachment of this is like this framework and context through which I am currently associating is all there is.
And Sarah, that's your name, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and what you just described is actually how separation happens. This concept of self that is built and in which we invest and all of that, and all the belief and all the perception built on that, the confirmation we get, the judgment we use to actually prefer this, avoid that, and that's exactly it. This is how separation is going on. And in the terminology of the course, what you describe about this let's say way to make peace with ego, it's the difference between, in the course language, it's the difference between special relationship and holy relationship.
Can you say that one more time, please?
Yeah, in the special relationship, we're talking about the terminology specifically of the course here. In the specific, the special relationship is what we invest in, what we love to hate, what we hate, what we with this and with that. All the judgment, the perspective is coming from. That's it. A special relationship. I mean, I love my daughters. I don't love those who aggress the people I love, etc., etc., etc. Special relationship. They are quite defined, and we have all the proof for it. We have everything for it. The thing is, once we start experiencing from the Holy Spirit perspective, the special relationship dissolve into a holy relationship, in which there is not less love, there is actually aliveness and love, often for experience for the first time. So that's it. It's in a way that ultimately there's no war with the ego. When the ego is seen for what it is, it's a bit like I was saying. I mean, I shifted from in the experience of the two-part formula, my experience was to shift from pushing away, feeling claustrophobic, seeing the ego as an enemy, as finally feeling tenderness about the whole thing. I mean, this tyrant that Ben was depicting before is actually sad in a way. Actually deserving,
so exhausted,
deserving, to be seen as it is, and and that's it. There's that's it. There's no war or conflict into this. I will stay on that, but it's that's it.
I add into that just a little bit too, with a lot of the research I've done around this too, like our brains in like delta until age 2, theta until age 8, and so this hardwired program we've got coming at a meditative state around parents who are, whatever generation with lack of whatever is there, and so that program and ego we can judge so harshly, when in all reality it was just simply the best that our caregivers had access to when it comes to love. And so how can I care for, hold, and love the nervous system that I have? Like, that's how it shows up for me. That's all that I am at the end of the day. And for me, my nervous system is activated with the Holy Spirit. And so I'm compelled, controlled. I don't have control over my body at times because there is such a alignment with the Holy Spirit that I'm trying to translate what's happening in my body, because it came online in July and I don't know how to navigate with it, because it's simply a force that is to be yielded and wielded and all this kind of stuff. Like it is overpowering for me. So that's an experience that it's been cool to be present with you all and have this dialogue. I've not had a container to have this dialogue, so this is a massive contribution.
Thank you guys for this container. Definitely.
Thanks, Jenna.
Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, it's really, really powerful. Yep.
Yeah, I just want to reiterate one point you just made, Jenna, actually, that is important, that the Holy Spirit does not judge the ego. That's right. Yeah. Doesn't judge anything.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think that's it for tonight.
You guys are the best.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you for
Thank you.
doing
Catch you all next week.
Thank you.
it. See ya.
Bye, everyone. Bye-bye.